Hello. In this video, we're going to go over how to solve word problems that need to be answered via equations in the multiple choice section of the ACT. So remember that in the math section, this is the only multiple choice section of the ACT that has 5 answer choices instead of 4. And that this is also number 59. I kept this number in intentionally to give us a perspective on how difficult the ACT expects us to perceive this. Remember that it gets more difficult, the ACT math section, from beginning to end. It progresses to be more difficult. So this is 59 out of 60. It's supposed to be the second hardest question of the test technically, but it really isn't. What you're going to see is that there's no complicated math here, nothing that you haven't already done in any of your other math classes. It's just kind of hidden within this very confusing text that sounds like this. For all real numbers b and c, such that the product of c and 3 is b, which of the following expression represents the sum of c and 3 in terms of b? This just sounds like a nursery rhyme, right? That's just very confusing. So let's just break this down, and we're going to see how simple this can actually be. For all real numbers b and c, that's all they're telling us, that b and c are real numbers. It's not imaginary. Moving on, we see that the product of c and 3 is b. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is that 3 and c equals b, right? So the product of c and 3 is b. E is always going to be an equal sign. Which of the following expression represents the sum of c and 3 in terms of b? So they're still asking, what does c plus 3 look like if we were going to replace some of these terms with b? And we can also look by our answer choice and see that they want us to have b as part of the description of how to describe, how can you rewrite c plus 3? And that's what they're asking. And obviously we need to use b, but we also see they don't want the letter c in there. They're okay with 3, but there's no c. So we want to keep that in mind as we move forward. Well, anytime we have equations like this or questions like this where you see in terms of, but that's a good hint is that we're probably going to have to isolate some variables. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to want to know what c is by itself, and I'm going to want to know what 3 is by itself. So how do I do that? Well, they gave us this equation, right? That's going to give us some context on how we can define c and 3. So let's start with getting 3 by itself first. I'm going to divide both sides here by c, and what I'll see is that 3 equals, because this cancels out, b over c. All right, and then now by the same methods, we can actually get c by itself. I'm going to use a different color here, teal. All right, I'm going to then divide by 3 on both sides. Let me make this a little bit more technical here. So the 3's cancel out, and now we can define c as b over 3. With that now written in this way, we can now see that, let me actually color code this to make more sense. Instead of just c plus 3, if we think of c as the teal color and 3 as the red color, I now can recognize, like, well, now I can just replace, these terms, like what the equals is, for the letters that we see here in the numbers. So instead of just c, I can rewrite this as b over 3 plus, well, instead of 3, let me put b over c. I can see I have fractions, which makes us pretty confident that a, b, and c can be canceled out. And now we're down to a 50-50 chance if we feel like we get stuck anywhere, but we're going to keep moving forward. Because I recognize here that, no, it doesn't look too much like this, or it kind of looks a little bit like d and e, but the key difference is that we still have c in here. It doesn't want us to have c. So what can I replace c with? Well, remember what we saw here is that c should actually be in teal, and that means that we can replace it with b over 3. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to replace c with b over 3. And what we see is that I can now rewrite this to be a little bit more fluid to what we think of in these equations, because that's a lot of what these standardized exams are. Like, can you write it in a way that it makes sense to you, because this is a test from a teacher that you've never been in their class before. That's what standardized exams are. So plus b over 3. Well, that looks kind of confusing, but don't forget that fractions are just division problems in disguise. So I'm going to see this as b divided by b over 3. And just to make this a little bit more simple, I'm just going to say this is this b right here in the middle. This is b over 1. Just straighten it out a little bit. Well, you're dividing fractions. What do we do in that case? Keep, change, flip. So now this becomes b over 3 plus, let me put this in parentheses because we're going to want to focus on this, keep, change, flip. Let me keep this in red just so we can keep some continuity here. Right? Well, oh, this should be b. All right, so what I see here is that the numerator and the denominators, they're going to cancel out. And now what I'm left with is 3 over 1, which is just 3. All right, so this whole parentheses turns into 3 over 1, which is just 3. And which that means is that this whole side here, right, or this side here, however you want to see it, what comes after b plus 3 can just be 3. So this becomes b over 3 plus 3, and that is E. And you can just see by isolating variables and breaking down the word problems into the individual equations that you want you to break them into, make something like this a lot more digestible. And you can see here there's no complex math functions. It's more about seeing the test in the way they want you to. And that always comes with time, experience, and reps. Best of luck. Let me know any questions.